The warning sirens screamed through the metal halls of Kepler Mining Station. Commander Elena Vasquez ran down the corridor, her boots hitting the floor with heavy steps. Red lights flashed everywhere, making shadows dance on the walls. "How long do we have?" Elena asked as she entered the command center. Lieutenant Tom Bradley looked up from his screen. His face was pale and sweaty. 30 minutes, maybe less. The Vorthok fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. Elena felt her stomach drop. Through the large window, she could see the dark shapes moving toward them. The Vorthok ships looked like giant metal insects, all sharp edges and deadly weapons. There were so many of them. "How many ships?" she asked. 200, Tom said quietly. "Maybe more." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 50,000 people lived on this station. Families, children, workers who had never hurt anyone. They were all going to die. The Vorthok Empire had been taking over the galaxy for 300 years. They never showed mercy. They never left survivors. Every world they visited became empty space filled with broken metal and ash. "Send the evacuation order," Elena said. "Get everyone to the escape pods." "Commander," said another voice. Dr. Marcus Webb walked over to them. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. "The escape pods won't work. The Vorthok will shoot them down before they get away." Elena knew he was right. The Vorthok always did that. They liked to watch people try to run before they killed them. "Then what do you want me to do?" Elena asked. "Just give up." Dr. Webb looked around the room. The other officers were listening but trying to pretend they were not. He moved closer to Elena and spoke in a low voice. "There might be another way," he said, "but it's dangerous. Very dangerous." Elena stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Dr. Webb pulled out a small datapad. His hands were shaking. "I've been working on classified research for years, studying reports from the Dead Zone." The Dead Zone was a part of space that no one talked about. It was far away from the main trade routes. Ships that went there sometimes came back with strange stories. Most of the time, they didn't come back at all. "What does that have to do with us?" Elena asked. "The Vorthok have sent fleets into the Dead Zone," Dr. Webb said. "Big fleets. Powerful fleets. They never came back. Not one ship." Elena felt something cold move down her back. "What's in there?" "We don't know for sure," Dr. Webb said. "But we have one piece of information. A transmission frequency. And a message." He showed her the datapad. On the screen were numbers and letters that looked like a communication code. Below that was a short message in basic galactic language. "Only contact in absolute desperation," Elena read out loud. "The message came from the Dead Zone 5 years ago," Dr. Webb said. "It was addressed to any human who might receive it." Elena looked at him with surprise. "Humans? But humans are just a small species. We're not powerful. We don't have big fleets. Or advanced weapons." "That's what everyone thinks," Dr. Webb said. "But this message suggests something different. Something that might help us." The station shook as the Vorthok ships moved closer. Elena could hear people screaming in the distance. The evacuation alarms were still ringing. "Commander," Tom called, "that they're charging their weapons. We have maybe 10 minutes. Elena looked at the datapad again. The transmission frequency seemed to glow on the screen. She thought about the 50,000 people on the station. She thought about the children in the nursery section. She thought about the families who were probably holding each other right now, waiting to die. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" she said to Dr. Webb. "Send a message on that frequency," he said. "Tell them we need help. Tell them the Vorthok are going to kill everyone here, and you think someone will answer." "I don't know," Dr. Webb said honestly. "But what choice do we have?" Elena looked around the command center. Her officers were watching her, waiting for orders. They trusted her to make the right choice. But what was the right choice when every option led to death? The station shook again, harder this time. Through the window, she could see the ships getting closer. Their weapons were glowing with deadly energy. "Commander," Tom said, "they're hailing us." "Put it through," Elena said. The main screen filled with the image of a Vorthok commander. Its face looked like a skull with too many teeth. Its eyes were black and cold. "Human station," the Vorthok said in its harsh voice. "You will surrender. All personnel for processing. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Processing. Elena knew what that meant. The Vorthok would take everyone apart piece by piece, studying them while they were still alive. It was worse than just being killed. "We need time to prepare the surrender," Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You have 5 minutes," the Vorthok commander said. Then the screen went black. Elena turned to Dr. Webb. "Give me that frequency." Dr. Webb's eyes went wide. "Are you sure?" 5 minutes, Elena said. "That's all we have." She walked over to the communication station and entered the numbers from the datapad. Her hands were steady now. She had made her choice. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of Kepler Mining Station," she said into the microphone. "We are under attack by the Vorthok Empire. 200 ships, 50,000 civilians. We have maybe 4 minutes before they start killing everyone. If someone can hear this, if someone can help, please respond." She waited. The seconds felt like hours. Around her, the command center was quiet except for the sound of people breathing and the distant alarms. Then the communications system crackled to life. "Message received," said a voice. It sounded human, but different somehow. Colder, harder. "Coordinates confirmed. We see the Vorthok fleet." Alina felt her heart start beating faster. "Who is this? Can you help us?" "Humans," the voice said, and there was something strange in the way it said the word. "Interesting. We haven't spoken to station humans in a long time." "Please," Alina said. "They're going to kill everyone here." "Yes," the voice said. "We can see that, don't worry. Commander Vasquez will be there soon." "How do you know my name?" Alina asked. "How do you know where we are?" But the communication had ended. The frequency was dead. Alina stared at the communication station. Around her, the other officers were looking at each other with confusion and fear. "Commander," Tom said quietly. "Who is that?" Before Alina could answer, the station's sensors started making new sounds. Warning beeps that meant something big was happening in space around them. "New contacts," Tom said, looking at his screen with wide eyes. "Ships are appearing out of nowhere, big ships." Alina looked at the main display. New dots of light were showing up on the scanner. They were moving fast, faster than should be possible. "How many?" she asked. 12 ships, Tom said. "No, wait, 20. They're still appearing." The Vorthok commander appeared on the screen again, but this time, its skull face looked worried. "Unknown vessels," the Vorthok said. "Identify yourselves or be destroyed." Alina waited to hear the response. Everyone in the command center waited. When it came, the voice was the same one that had spoken to Alina, but now it was being broadcast to everyone. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Collective," the voice said. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system." "Terran Collective," the Vorthok commander said. There is no such organization in our records." "Your records are incomplete," the human voice replied. 20 seconds. Alina watched the display screen. The new ships were moving into formation around the Vorthok fleet. Even though there were fewer of them, something about the way they moved that made her think of predators surrounding prey. "We are the Vorthok Empire," the alien commander said. "We do not retreat from unknown species." 10 seconds, Captain Morrison said. Alina held her breath. 50,000 people held their breath. Even the Vorthok seemed to be waiting. 5 seconds, the human voice said. "We tried to be polite." Admiral Korvax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Death's Hand. He was the most feared commander in the Vorthok Empire. In 50 years of war, he had never lost a battle. He had destroyed entire worlds and killed millions of beings. "Admiral," his weapons officer said, "the unknown ships are not responding to our warnings." Korvax looked at the display screen. 24 human ships had appeared around his fleet of 200. The numbers made him want to laugh. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. "What do we know about their technology?" Korvax asked. "Their ships are strange," the science officer reported. "They use materials we don't recognize. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database." "Unknown materials mean nothing," Korvax said. "Numbers are what matter. 200 ships against 24. The math is simple." The Vorthok had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries because they understood one thing perfectly: fear. When other species saw their black ships, they surrendered or died. There was no third option. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "the humans are requesting to speak with you directly." Korvax's mandibles clicked together in amusement. "Put them through. I want to see what these creatures look like before I kill them." The main screen changed to show a human face. The man looked young, maybe 30 standard years. He had dark hair and calm eyes. He was wearing a black uniform that Korvax didn't recognize. "I am Captain Jake Morrison," the human said. "I speak for the Terran Collective Fleet." "I am Admiral Korvax of the Vorthok Empire," Korvax replied. "You are trespassing in Imperial space. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Captain Morrison smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Admiral, you seem to be confused. This system is under our protection now. Your fleet needs to leave." Korvax felt anger rise in his chest. No one had spoken to him like this in decades. "Human, you have 24 ships. I have 200. Do you understand numbers?" "I understand numbers very well," Morrison said. "I also understand that you've been attacking defenseless civilians. That stops now." "The Vorthok Empire does not negotiate with inferior species," Korvax said. "We take what we want. We destroy what we don't need." "Inferior species?" Morrison's smile grew wider. "Admiral, I think you need to update your files. We're not the humans you think we are." Something in the human's voice made Korvax pause. There was confidence there. Too much confidence for someone facing impossible odds. "Explain," Korvax said. "We are the descendants of Earth," Morrison said. "But we left that world 400 years ago. We've been living in the space you call the dead zone. We've been waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For someone like you," Morrison said. "Someone who thinks they're the strongest predator in the galaxy." Korvax's science officer made a noise of surprise. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in their ships. Their weapons are powering up." "All ships," Korvax commanded. "Battle stations. Prepare to destroy the human fleet." Admiral Morrison said, still smiling. Before we begin, I want you to understand something. Your empire has a reputation for being ruthless, for being the galaxy's apex predators. That reputation is about to change." The human's image disappeared from the screen. Korvax felt a strange chill run down his spine. In 50 years of war, he had never felt uncertain before a battle, but something about this human bothered him. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "the human ships are moving. They're spreading out in a hunting formation." Korvax looked at the tactical display. The human ships were indeed moving like hunters. They weren't grouping together for defense. They weren't trying to run. They were positioning themselves like predators surrounding prey. "Impossible," Korvax muttered. "Fire all weapons, destroy them." The Vorthok fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space between the two fleets. The weapons were powerful enough to crack planets. Nothing could survive that much firepower, but when the light faded, all 24 human ships were still there. "Report," Korvax shouted. "Sir," the weapons officer said, his voice shaking. "Direct hits on all targets. No damage detected." "What do you mean no damage?" "They're shields, sir. They're not like anything we've seen. Our weapons just bounced off." Korvax stared at the display. The human ships were glowing with a strange blue energy. "They looked completely undamaged, sir," the communications officer said. "We're receiving a message from the humans. Put it through." Captain Morrison. I appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Korvax could see other humans working at control stations. They all looked calm, as if nothing had happened. "That was impressive," Morrison said. "Very loud, very bright. Now let us show you what real weapons look like." One of the human ships moved forward. It was smaller than Korvax's flagship, but something about it made his skin crawl. It didn't look like a normal starship. It looked like a living thing made of metal and energy. "What is that ship?" Korvax asked. "That's the Predator," Morrison said. "She's one of our hunters. Watch what she can do." The human ship fired a single beam of red light. The beam hit a Vorthok cruiser and the ship simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not blown apart. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. "What kind of weapon was that?" Korvax demanded. "Something we learned to build during our exile," Morrison said. "We had 400 years to perfect our technology. 400 years to become something better than we were." Another human ship fired. Another Vorthok vessel vanished. Then another. The human ships were moving through Korvax's fleet like sharks through a school of fish. "All ships retreat formation," Korvax ordered. "Fall back to safe distance." But his ships were too slow. The human vessels moved like nothing Korvax had ever seen. They seemed to bend space around them, appearing and disappearing at will. "Sir," his navigator called out. "We've lost 30 ships. The humans are jamming our communications. Our ships can't coordinate." Korvax watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart. The ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being destroyed by vessels that shouldn't exist. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Dot on the screen. Captain Morrison was still smiling. "Admiral, your species has spent 300 years believing you were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, but you never met us. You never met humans who had nothing left to lose." "What do you want?" Korvax asked. "We want you to understand something," Morrison said. "The age of the Vorthok Empire is over. There are new predators in the galaxy now." A human ship appeared directly in front of Korvax's flagship. It was so close he could see details on its hull. The metal seemed to pulse like living tissue. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. "You have one chance," Morrison said. "Surrender now, and some of your people might live. Continue fighting, and we'll do to your entire fleet what we did to those 30 ships." Korvax looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him with fear in their eyes. These were warriors who had fought 100 battles, but now they looked like frightened children. "Who are you?" Korvax asked quietly. "We are what humans become when we have no choice but to evolve," Morrison said. "We are what happens when you push a species beyond its breaking point. We are the Terran Collective, and we've been waiting for centuries for this moment." "Waiting for what?" "To come home," Morrison said. "To reclaim our place in the galaxy. To show every species what real predators look like." Korvax felt something he had never experienced before. True fear. Not fear of death, but fear of something worse. Fear of meeting a predator more dangerous than himself. "We were exiled from the galactic community 400 years ago," Morrison continued. "They said we were too violent, too dangerous to exist alongside peaceful species. They were right to be afraid. But exile didn't destroy us. It made us stronger." On the tactical display, Korvax could see that he had lost almost half his fleet. The remaining ships were scattered and confused. The humans had destroyed them without taking a single casualty. "What are your terms?" Korvax asked. "Simple," Morrison said. "You will leave this system immediately. You will never return, and you will send a message to your emperor telling him that the dead zone is no longer empty. And if we refuse—" Morrison's smile disappeared when he spoke again. His voice was cold as space itself. "Then you'll discover why the Vorthok fleets that entered our territory never came home." Elena watched through the command center window as the battle ended. The space around Kepler Station was filled with debris from Vorthok ships. Twisted metal and burning wreckage drifted past the station, like a graveyard of broken dreams. How many Vorthok ships escaped? She asked Lieutenant Tom Bradley. Tom checked his sensors. 12, Commander. Out of 200. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen many battles in her career, but nothing like this. The human ships had torn through the Vorthok fleet like wolves through sheep. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Commander, Dr. Webb said quietly, we need to talk about what just happened. Before Elena could answer, the communication system crackled to life. The same voice that had spoken during the battle filled the room. Commander Vasquez, Captain Morrison said, this is the Terran collective ship Retribution. We need to speak with you. Elena looked around the command center. Her officers were watching her with wide eyes. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. I'm listening, Captain Elena said. Not over open channels, Morrison replied. You need to come aboard our flagship. There are things we need to discuss privately. I can't leave the station, Elena said. I have 50,000 people to take care of. Your people are safe now, Morrison said. The Vorthok won't return to this system, but there are larger issues we need to address. Issues that affect the entire galaxy. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Something in Morrison's voice told her this conversation would change everything. How do I know you won't harm me? She asked. There was a pause. Then Morrison spoke again, and his voice was softer. Commander, we just saved 50,000 human lives. We didn't have to do that. We could have let the Vorthok kill everyone and taken what we needed from the wreckage. The fact that we chose to help should tell you something about our intentions. Elena thought about this. The mysterious humans had appeared when all hope was gone. They had fought the galaxy's most feared empire and won. But what did they want in return? I'll come, she said finally. But I want guarantees about the safety of this station. You have them, Morrison said. Transport coordinates are being sent to your systems now. Elena turned to Tom. You have command while I'm gone. If anything happens to me, contact the Galactic Council and tell them everything. Commander Tom said. Are you sure about this? Elena looked out the window at the human ships. They hung in space like sleeping predators, dark and deadly. She was not sure about anything anymore. No, she said honestly, but we don't have a choice. The transport beam was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Instead of the usual tingling sensation, she felt like she was being taken apart and put back together by invisible hands. When the light faded, she was standing in a corridor made of black metal. The walls seemed to pulse with their own life. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, glowing with soft red light. The air smelled like ozone and something else she couldn't identify. Something that made her think of battlefields. Commander Vasquez, a voice said behind her. Elena turned to see a woman approaching. She was tall and lean, with short gray hair and eyes like winter storms. She wore the same black uniform Elena had seen on Captain Morrison, but with more decorations. This was clearly someone important. I am Admiral Nova Cross, the woman said. Welcome aboard the Retribution. Elena looked around the corridor. Everything was designed for war. The walls were covered with weapons and armor. Display screens showed tactical information about star systems she didn't recognize. Thank you for saving my people, Elena said. Don't thank me yet, Nova replied. Follow me, we have much to discuss. They walked through corridors filled with activity. Elena saw dozens of humans working at various tasks, but these people were different from the humans she knew. They moved with predatory grace. Their eyes held a hardness she had never seen before. How many people are on this ship? Elena asked. 3,000. Nova said. All warriors, all veterans of wars you can't imagine. They entered a large room filled with screens and holographic displays. Elena gasped when she saw what was being shown. Star maps of the entire galaxy, with red markers on hundreds of systems. Vorthok worlds, Nova explained. Every planet they control. Every fleet base. Every supply depot. We've been watching them. For a very long time Elena stared at the displays. There were so many red markers. The Vorthok Empire was even larger than she had thought. How do you have this information? She asked. We've been preparing for this day for 400 years, Nova said. We've sent scouts to every corner of the galaxy. We've studied our enemies. We've learned their weaknesses. Nova touched a control panel and the displays changed. Now Elena could see images of battles, ships being destroyed, planets burning. This is what the Vorthok have done to peaceful worlds, Nova said. Billions of innocent people killed for the crime of existing in their path. Elena felt sick looking at the images. She had heard stories about Vorthok brutality, but seeing it was different. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because I want you to understand what we're fighting against, Nova said. The Vorthok aren't just conquerors. They're a disease that spreads across the galaxy, destroying everything beautiful and good. Nova touched another control and the images changed again. Now Elena could see human ships, but not the ones outside Kepler Station. These were different ships, older and less advanced. 400 years ago, humanity was just another small species trying to find its place in the galaxy, Nova said. We were peaceful. We tried to follow the rules. We believed in cooperation and diplomacy. What changed? Elena asked. The Galactic Council decided we were too dangerous, Nova said. They said humans were too violent, too unpredictable. They gave us a choice: submit to their control or leave the galaxy forever. Alina felt confused, but humans are still part of the Galactic Council. There are human colonies throughout the galaxy. Those are the humans who submitted, Nova said with disgust. They accepted the Council's restrictions. They agreed to be peaceful and controlled. They forgot what it means to be truly human. Nova walked to another display. This one showed a star map of the dead zone, the empty region of space where no one dared to go. We chose exile, Nova said. We took our best ships, our brightest minds, our strongest warriors, and we disappeared into the void. The galaxy forgot about us. That was their mistake. What did you do out there? Alina asked. We survived, Nova said simply. We fought things that would give the Vorthok nightmares. We adapted. We evolved. We became what we needed to become. Alina looked at the humans working around the room. Now she understood why they seemed so different. They had spent centuries being forged by circumstances that would have destroyed other species. What do you want from me? Alina asked. Nova smiled, but it wasn't a warm expression. Information, Commander. The locations of every Vorthok fleet. The schedules of their supply convoys. The defensive capabilities of their worlds. You want intelligence for an attack, Alina said. Not an attack, Nova corrected. A war. The war that should have been fought 300 years ago. Alina felt her heart racing. I can't give you that information. It would mean the deaths of billions of people. The Vorthok have already killed billions of people, Nova said. They will kill billions more if they're allowed to continue. The only question is whether you'll help us stop them or stand aside while they destroy everything you care about. Alina thought about the images Nova had shown her. The burning planets, the destroyed ships, the faces of the dead. But she also thought about the consequences of what Nova was asking. There has to be another way, Alina said. Negotiation, diplomacy, something other than total war. We tried diplomacy once, Nova said. It got us exiled from our own galaxy. The time for talking is over, Commander. Now is the time for action. Nova touched the control panel again. The displays showed the Kepler system with the Vorthok debris, still floating in space. You called us when you had no other choice, Nova said. You made that call because you knew your people would die without our help. Now I'm asking you to make another choice. Help us end the Vorthok threat forever, or watch them continue their campaign of genocide across the galaxy. Alina stared at the displays, trying to think of alternatives. But every option she considered led to the same conclusion. The Vorthok would never stop killing unless they were stopped by force. What exactly are you asking me to do? Alina said. Finally, give us the tactical information we need, Nova said. Fleet movements, supply routes, defensive weaknesses. Help us plan our strikes so we can end this war quickly and efficiently. In return, we'll do what the Galactic Council never could, Nova said. We'll make the galaxy safe for peaceful species. We'll ensure that no one else has to make the desperate call you made today. Alina looked around the room at the human, whereas these people had spent 4 centuries preparing for this moment. They had the technology, the knowledge, and the will to do what they promised. But they also had the power to become the very thing they were fighting against. I need time to think, Alina said. Time is something we don't have much of, Nova replied. The Vorthok survivors from today's battle are already reporting back to their empire. Soon they'll send larger fleets, more powerful weapons. If we're going to act, it has to be now. Alina closed her eyes and thought about the 50,000 people on Kepler Station. They were alive because these humans had answered her call. How many other stations, other colonies, other worlds were waiting for someone to save them? When she opened her eyes, Admiral Nova Cross was watching her with patience and understanding. The choice is yours, Commander, Nova said quietly. But choose quickly. The galaxy is running out of time. Emperor Malthorn sat on his throne of black crystal, watching the holographic display with growing rage. The throne room was filled with his highest generals and admirals, but none of them dared to speak. The air was thick with fear and uncertainty. 12 ships, the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Out of 200, only 12 escaped. Admiral Korvex knelt before the throne, his body shaking. In 50 years of service he had never suffered such a defeat. The shame burned in his chest like acid. Tell me again about these humans, the Emperor commanded. They called themselves the Terran Collective, Korvex said, his voice barely a whisper. Their ships were unlike anything in our databases. Their weapons made our vessels simply disappear. The Emperor's claws scraped against the crystal armrests of his throne. Humans are a weak species. They build small ships and hide behind their council protectors. How could they destroy an imperial fleet? These were not ordinary humans, my Emperor, Korvex said. They spoke of exile, of 400 years in the dead zone. They had evolved beyond anything we know. General Vex, the Emperor's military advisor, stepped forward. My lord, if I may. The dead zone has been forbidden territory for decades. Our fleets that entered that region never returned. Perhaps these humans are connected to those disappearances. The Emperor's black eyes fixed on the General, are you suggesting that a handful of exiled humans destroyed entire Vorthok fleets? The evidence suggests it is possible. My lord, General Vex replied carefully. The Emperor stood up from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the room. He was larger than most Vorthok, with scars covering his body from countless battles. He had ruled the Empire for 80 years, conquering every enemy that dared to challenge him. Bring me the intelligence reports, he commanded. A nervous aide brought forward a data tablet. The Emperor studied the information, his expression growing darker with each passing moment. These humans have been watching us, he said finally. They know our fleet positions, our supply routes, our defensive capabilities. This was not a random encounter. What are your orders, my Emperor? General Vex asked. Mobilize the entire Imperial fleet, the Emperor said. Every ship, every weapon, every warrior. We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Vorthok Empire. Meanwhile, aboard the Retribution, Alina sat in a small room with Admiral Nova Cross. The room was simple but functional, with walls covered in star charts and tactical displays. Alina had been thinking for 3 hours, but she knew her time was running out. Have you made your decision? Nova asked. Alina looked at the datapad in her hands. It contained everything Nova had requested: fleet movements, supply schedules, defensive positions, information that would help the humans plan their attacks. If I give you this, Alina said, how many people will die? Fewer than will die if we do nothing, Nova replied. The Vorthok kill billions of innocent people every year. They turn entire worlds into graveyards. At least our way, the killing will have a purpose. Alina thought about the images Nova had shown her earlier. The burning planets, the dead cities, the faces of the victims. The Vorthok were a plague upon the galaxy, spreading death wherever they went. I'll give you the information, Alina said finally, but I want guarantees. You'll target military installations first. You'll give civilian populations a chance to evacuate. Nova's expression softened slightly. I can make those promises, Commander. We're not monsters. We're trying to save the galaxy, not destroy it. Alina handed over the datapad. As Nova took it, she felt like she was crossing a line she could never uncross. The information on that pad would start a war that would reshape the galaxy. What happens now? Alina asked. Now we begin the real work, Nova said. We have 12 targets selected for the first wave of attacks. Vorthok fleet bases, supply depots, communication centers. We'll cripple their ability to respond before they know what's happening. Alina felt a chill run down her spine. How long do we have before they retaliate? The Vorthok survivors from Kepler have already reached their home territory, Nova said. We estimate the Emperor will mobilize his entire fleet within 48 hours. That gives us a narrow window to strike first. Nova stood up and walked to a wall display. She touched a control panel and the screen showed 12 star systems, each marked with red targeting symbols. These are our primary objectives, Nova said. Military targets only, as promised. But Alina, you need to understand something. Once we begin this campaign, there's no going back. The Vorthok will never stop hunting us. This will be a war to the finish. Alina stared at the display. 12 worlds would be attacked simultaneously. The coordination required was staggering. How had the humans managed to plan such an operation so quickly? You've been planning this for a long time, Alina realized. 400 years, Nova confirmed. We've been preparing for this war since the day we were exiled. Every ship we built, every weapon we developed, every tactic we learned was designed for this moment. Alina felt a strange mix of admiration and terror. The humans had spent centuries preparing for revenge against the galaxy that had rejected them. Their patience was both impressive and frightening. What about the other species? Alina asked. The Galactic Council. What will they do when they realize what's happening? Nova's expression hardened. The Council will do what they always do. They'll debate, they'll form committees, they'll pass resolutions. While they're talking, we'll be fighting. Some species might side with the Vorthok, Alina warned. Then they'll share the Vorthok's fate, Nova said coldly. We've tried the diplomatic approach. We've tried following the rules. The time for half measures is over. Alina looked at Nova's face and saw something that made her stomach tighten. The Admiral wasn't just planning a military campaign. She was planning genocide. Nova, Alina said carefully. When this war is over, what happens to the humans who chose to stay in the galaxy? The ones who submitted to the Council's restrictions? Nova was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was distant. They made their choice 400 years ago. They chose safety over freedom. They chose slavery over strength. That's not an answer, Alina pressed. They're not our responsibility, Nova said. We offered them a chance to join us in exile. They refused. Whatever happens to them now is a consequence of their own decisions. Alina felt sick. She was beginning to understand the true scope of what she had unleashed. The humans weren't just planning to destroy the Vorthok. They were planning to remake the entire galaxy according to their own vision. I need to return to my station, Alina said. Of course, Nova agreed. But Alina, remember what I told you. Once the shooting starts, there will be no neutral ground. Every species will have to choose a side. Alina was transported back to Kepler Station. but her mind was still aboard the Retribution. She walked through the corridors in a daze, thinking about what would happen in the next few hours. "Commander," Lieutenant Tom Bradley said as she entered the command center, "we've been monitoring long-range communications. There's a lot of activity in Vorthok space, fleet movements, emergency broadcasts." "They're mobilizing," Elena said quietly. "Yes, ma'am. It looks like they're gathering ships from across the Empire. This is going to be big." Elena looked out the window at the human ships. They were preparing to leave, making final checks and adjustments. Soon they would scatter across the galaxy to begin their campaign of destruction. "Tom," Elena said, "send a message to Galactic Council headquarters. Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the humans, about the Vorthok attack, about everything." "Yes, ma'am. What should I tell them about our role in this?" Elena closed her eyes. She had made her choice, but that didn't make it easier to live with. "Tell them the truth. Tell them we were desperate and we made a deal with the devil." "Commander," Dr. Webb said, approaching from across the room, "the human ships are leaving. Admiral Cross wants to speak with you one more time." Elena activated the communication system. Nova's face appeared on the screen, but she was clearly on the bridge of her ship now, surrounded by tactical displays and busy crew members. "Commander," Nova said, "thank you for your help. The information you provided will save thousands of human lives, and cost thousands of Vorthok lives," Elena replied. "Yes," Nova said without hesitation. "That's the price of war, Elena. The Vorthok have been collecting that price for 3 centuries. Now it's their turn to pay." Elena watched as the human ships began to move away from the station. They accelerated quickly, disappearing into hyperspace one by one. Soon, only empty space remained where the deadly fleet had been. "What have I done?" Elena whispered to herself. But deep down, she knew the answer. She had saved 50,000 lives by potentially condemning millions more. She had chosen to trust humanity's most dangerous children with the power to reshape the galaxy. In 48 hours, the largest space battle in galactic history would begin, and Elena Vasquez would have to live with the knowledge that she had helped make it possible. The die was cast. The war had begun. The fixed system was the heart of the Vorthok Empire. For 300 years, no enemy had dared to approach the homeworld of the galaxy's most feared species. The system was protected by massive defense stations, minefields, and the largest fleet base in known space. Emperor Malthorn stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Empire's Wrath. Around him, 10,000 Vorthok ships waited in formation. Every vessel in the Imperial fleet had been called home to defend their most sacred space. "Emperor," General Vex reported, "our scouts have detected hyperspace distortions. The humans are coming." Malthorn's claws gripped the command rail. "Help." "Many ships unknown, my lord. The distortions are ... strange. Our sensors cannot get accurate readings." The Emperor stared at the main display screen. Empty space stretched before them. But somewhere in that darkness, humanity's deadliest children were approaching. He had ruled an empire of 1,000 worlds, but for the first time in his life he felt uncertain. "All ships," he commanded. "Battle. Formation. Today we show the galaxy that the Vorthok Empire cannot be defeated." Lighters away, Elena stood in the command center of Kepler Station, watching the long-range scanners. The readings were incredible. Energy signatures unlike anything she had ever seen were moving toward the thick system. "How many human ships are out there?" she asked Dr. Webb. "The sensors can't give us exact numbers," he replied, "but based on the energy readings, I estimate at least 500 vessels." Elena felt her breath catch. 500 ships against 10,000. Even with their advanced technology, the humans were badly outnumbered. "Commander," Lieutenant Tom Bradley called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Cross." Nova's image appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Elena could see the bridge of the Retribution bustling with activity. Warning lights flashed and crew members worked at their stations with deadly efficiency. "Elena," Nova said, "we're about to enter the thick system. I wanted you to see how this ends." "Admiral," Elena said, "you're outnumbered 20-1. Are you sure about this?" Nova smiled, and it was the coldest expression Elena had ever seen. "Numbers don't matter when you're fighting for survival. The Vorthok are about to learn what happens when you corner a predator." The transmission switched to a tactical display, showing the approaching fleets. Elena watched as hundreds of human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the thick system. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. Emperor Malthorn saw them coming. On his own displays, the human ships were smaller than he had expected, but something about the way they moved made his skin crawl. They didn't approach like a normal fleet. They approached like hunters. "Open fire," he commanded. "All ships, maximum range. Destroy them before they get closer." The Vorthok fleet unleashed a wall of energy that lit up space like a second star. Thousands of weapons fired simultaneously, creating a destructive force that could have cracked a moon. The beams and missiles streaked toward the human formation. But when the weapons reached their targets, something impossible happened. The human ship seemed to bend and twist, avoiding the attacks in ways that defied physics. Only a few were hit, and those that were struck simply absorbed the damage without effect. "Impossible," Malthorn whispered on the Retribution. "Admiral, Cross watched the Vorthok attack with calm satisfaction. Evasive systems are working perfectly, she reported to her crew. Begin the counterattack. The human ships spread out across the battlefield, moving with predatory grace. They didn't mass together like a traditional fleet. Instead, they hunted in small groups, targeting specific Vorthok vessels with surgical precision. Alina watched in fascination and horror as the battle unfolded. The human ships used weapons she didn't recognize, beams of energy that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. Where the beams touched Vorthok vessels, the ships simply ceased to exist. What kind of technology is that? Dr. Webb asked in wonder. Something they learned in 400 years of exile, Alina replied. Something that makes them the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The battle raged for hours. The Vorthok fought with desperate fury, but they were fighting an enemy unlike any they had ever faced. The humans moved through their formations, like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will, striking without warning and vanishing before retaliation was possible. Emperor Malthorn watched his mighty fleet being torn apart. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being destroyed by vessels that seemed to mock the laws of physics. How many have we lost? He demanded. 4,000 ships, my lord, General Vex reported, his voice shaking. The humans have lost less than 50. Malthorn felt something he had never experienced before, despair. His empire, built on 3 centuries of conquest, was crumbling before his eyes. All remaining ships, he ordered. Ramming speed. If we cannot defeat them with weapons, we will destroy them with our hulls. But even this desperate tactic failed. The human ships were too fast, too agile. They danced between the Vorthok vessels, like leaves in the wind, always just out of reach. On Kepler Station, Alina watched as the tide of battle turned decisively. The Vorthok fleet, once 10,000 strong, was now reduced to less than 3,000 ships. The humans pressed their advantage with ruthless efficiency. Commander Tom said quietly, I'm detecting something strange. The human ships are changing. Alina looked at the tactical display. Tom was right. The human vessels were transforming, becoming something even more deadly. Their hulls glowed with internal fire, and their weapon systems seemed to be merging with the ships themselves. What are they doing? She asked. The answer came from Admiral Cross herself. Her image reappeared on the screen, but now her face was filled with a terrible resolve. Alina Nova said, what you're about to see is humanity's ultimate weapon, something we hoped we would never have to use. What do you mean? Alina asked. We're turning our ships into guided missiles, Nova explained. Our crews are volunteering for suicide runs. It's the only way to break through their remaining defenses. Alina felt sick. Nova, you don't have to do this. You're already winning. Winning isn't enough, Nova replied. The Vorthok have to be completely destroyed, every ship, every base, every trace of their empire. Otherwise they'll rebuild and continue their campaign of genocide. On the battlefield, Alina watched in horror as human ships began ramming themselves into Vorthok vessels. But these weren't random crashes. They were precisely calculated attacks that maximized damage and eliminated entire formations of enemy ships. Emperor Malthorn saw his flagship's escorts disappearing one by one as human ships crashed into them with devastating effect. Each collision released energy equivalent to a small star going nova. Evacuate the bridge. He ordered his remaining crew. Save yourselves while you can. But his officers refused to leave. They had served the Empire faithfully for decades, and they would not abandon their emperor in his final moments. The Empire's wrath shuddered as a human ship slammed into its port side. Emergency lights flickered and alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Malthorn knew his time was up. Signal all remaining ships, he said with dignity. Surrender to the humans. The Empire is finished. But before the surrender signal could be sent, another human ship struck the flagship's bridge. Emperor Malthorn, ruler of 1,000 worlds, died as his ship broke apart around him. Alina watched the final moments of the battle with tears in her eyes. The space around Thix Prime was filled with wreckage and the expanding clouds of destroyed fleets. The Vorthok Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries, was gone. Commander Tom reported, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Admiral Cross appeared on the screen one final time. Her ship was damaged, but intact, and her face showed both victory and exhaustion. Alina Nova said, it's over. The Vorthok Empire has been destroyed. Every military installation, every fleet base, every threat they pose to innocent life has been eliminated. What happens now? Alina asked. Now we rebuild, Nova replied. But this time, we do it right. No more empires built on conquest and murder. No more species enslaved by their neighbors. The galaxy will be protected by those strong enough to do what needs to be done. Alina felt a chill at Nova's words. The humans had destroyed one empire, but were they planning to build another in its place? Admiral, Alina said carefully, what about the species that supported the What about the ones who might resist your protection? Nova's expression hardened. They'll have a choice, Alina. Join the Terran Collective willingly, accept our protection and live in peace, or, double quotes, she paused. Well, let's hope they make the right choice. The transmission ended, leaving Alina alone with her thoughts. She had called for help in humanity's darkest hour, and help had come. But that help had a price that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Outside Kepler Station, human ships began to form new formations. They weren't leaving. They were taking up permanent positions, becoming the galaxy's new guardians whether the galaxy wanted protection or not. Alina walked to the window and looked out at the dark shapes hanging in space. Humanity had returned from exile, but they were no longer the species that had been banished 4 centuries ago. They had become something far more dangerous. The age of the Vorthok was over. The age of humanity had begun, and Alina Vasquez, who had made the call that changed everything, could only watch as the galaxy learned to live under the protection of its deadliest predators. In the distance, she could see the first colony ships arriving from Earth itself. Humanity was coming home, and they were bringing their own vision of order with them. The galaxy would never be the same.